Welcome, dear friend, and thank you for choosing this quiet place to rest your thoughts. The story that follows is a gentle offering, a soft and peaceful sanctuary, crafted to help you find gentle contentment and drift peacefully towards sleep. If this tale brings you comfort, a simple light, a kind subscription, or a warm comment helps this quiet corner of the world to grow. Tonight, we will be visiting the Starlight Clearing, a hidden glade where a young fawn discovers that the light of the stars can be tasted, sweet and warm, upon the tongue. Prepare to be enchanted by a world of profound stillness and simple, gentle magic. Allow this tale to be a soft blanket for your mind, a quiet path leading you to deep and restorative rest. Chapter 1: The Trail of Soft Light. There is a special kind of quiet that lives in the heart of a deep wood, a quiet that holds the rustle of leaves, the distant call of a night bird, and the soft padding of small feet. It was this quiet that Pip, a young fawn with a coat the color of dried ferns and eyes like dark, curious pools, knew as his whole world. He was a creature of gentle habits, his days spent following his mother through familiar sun-dappled paths. Yet tonight, a thread of something new had been woven into the familiar tapestry of the woods, a soft, silvery light that seemed to beckon from deeper within the trees. His mother and the other deer were settling for the night in their usual hollow, but Pip's gentle curiosity, a feeling as soft and insistent as a nudge from a wet nose, pulled him toward the strange glow. He took one tentative step, then another, his small hooves making almost no sound on the thick bed of fallen leaves. The air here was different. It grew warmer and carried a lovely, unfamiliar scent, a sweet perfume like flowers that only open to greet the stars, mingled with the clean, wholesome smell of damp earth. The trail of light was not a path, but more a suggestion, a series of soft, luminous patches on the bark of ancient trees and the surfaces of broad, glossy leaves. It was as if the moon had spilled a little of its shimmer as it passed overhead, leaving a gentle trail for someone small and curious to follow. Pip followed, his ears swiveling to catch the soft sounds of the deep wood, his nose twitching as he sampled the sweetening air. He felt a profound sense of safety, a gentle certainty that the path ahead was a kind one. He walked for some time, the familiar shapes of the wood giving way to trees far older and larger than any he had seen before. Their trunks were thick and gnarled, covered in a soft, deep green moss, and their branches reached up to weave a thick canopy that almost completely obscured the sky. Yet the woods were not dark. The silvery light grew stronger here, seeming to emanate from the very air itself. The world felt hushed and reverent, as if he were walking into a great, green, sleeping cathedral. He came at last to a final barrier, a dense curtain of fern fronds that hung from a high earthen bank. Their leaves were a deep, shadowy green, and they moved with a soft, slow sway, though there was no wind to stir them. The warm, floral scent and the soft, silvery light poured from between their leaves. It was an invitation. Mustering his quiet courage, Pip pushed his small head through the ferns. The leaves were wonderfully soft against his face, a gentle caress that seemed to welcome him. He stepped through and found himself in a place of pure, gentle wonder. Before him lay a small, perfectly circular clearing, bathed in a soft, permanent starlight. The light did not seem to come from the sky above, which was mostly hidden by the canopy, but from the air, from the ground, from the very leaves of the great trees that stood sentinel around the glade's edge. The ground was not soil or grass, but a continuous carpet of the deepest, softest green moss he had ever seen. It looked like a field of plush, living fur, and it seemed to absorb all sound, creating a profound and beautiful silence. The air in the clearing was warm and utterly still, and it hummed with a gentle, barely there vibration that Pip could feel through the soles of his hooves. It was a feeling of deep, abiding peace, a low, soothing note that seemed to be the glade's own slow heartbeat. He stood just within the curtain of ferns, his heart beating a little faster, not with fear, but with a quiet, overwhelming awe. He took a slow, deep breath, the warm, sweet air filling his small lungs and seeming to soothe him from the inside out. He had never been in a place that felt so kind. The light was kind, the silence was kind, the very air itself felt kind. He took another step forward, his hoof sinking slightly into the unbelievably soft moss. It felt like stepping onto a cloud. This place was a secret, a gentle heart hidden within the deep wood, and somehow his own quiet heart had led him here. Chapter 2. The Taste of Wonder. Pip took another tentative step into the clearing, his large dark eyes wide with the innocent wonder of his discovery. The silence here was a living thing, a soft blanket that muffled the world, allowing the glade's own quiet music to be heard. It was in the low, pleasant hum that vibrated up from the mossy ground, and in the soft, continuous rustle from the ancient leaves above, a sound like the turning of 1,000 tiny, soft pages. He felt as though he had stepped into a secret that the woods had been keeping for a very long time. His gaze roamed, taking in every gentle detail. The moss beneath his hooves was so deep and springy, it made him want to lie down and curl into a small ball. The air, thick with the scent of damp earth and sweet moon petals, was a balm. Then he noticed the trees. The great ancient trees that ringed the glade had leaves as broad as his own ears, and on the underside of each leaf something shimmered in the soft silvery light. There were tiny, perfect droplets hanging like jewels from the tips of the leaves. Drawn by his unending curiosity, Pip moved closer to the nearest tree. He stood on his tiptoes, stretching his neck to get a better look. One droplet, larger than the others, hung precariously from the edge of a leaf right above his nose. It glowed with a soft internal luminescence, a captured piece of the starlight that filled the air. It looked so pure and inviting. Without thinking, moved by a simple, honest instinct, he reached out his small pink tongue and touched the droplet. A feeling of pure, astonishing delight flooded his senses. The droplet was not water. It was a thick, sweet nectar, with a taste like the most fragrant honey imaginable. Yet it was also light and warm. It was like tasting captured sunlight, or the memory of a warm summer afternoon. The moment the sweetness touched his tongue, a gentle, pleasant warmth, spread from the center of his chest all the way to the tips of his ears and the end of his tail. It was a warmth that spoke of safety, of contentment, of profound well-being. He licked another drop and another, the feeling of gentle joy growing with each taste. This was the source of the clearing's magic, a place where the starlight itself became a sweet, nourishing gift. He was so absorbed in this wonderful discovery that he did not at first notice the slow, ambling shape that emerged from a hollow at the base of one of the great trees. It was an old badger, his fur a salt and pepper mix of silver and black, his face marked with the kind, sleepy lines of a very long and peaceful life. The badger moved with a slow, rolling gait, his claws making no sound on the soft moss. He paused a short distance from Pip and regarded the young fawn with small, intelligent, and entirely friendly eyes. He did not seem surprised or alarmed to find a visitor in his glade. Instead, a low, rumbling hum started deep in his chest, a sound like the purr of a very large, very contented cat. It was a sound of welcome. Pip froze for only a moment, the sweetness still lingering on his tongue. He looked at the old badger and felt none of the caution his mother had taught him. This creature, like the clearing itself, radiated a deep and gentle kindness. The badger's rumbling hum was reassuring, a promise that all was well. Pip simply watched him, his head tilted in quiet curiosity. The old badger, who was called Bramblewick, gave a slow, deliberate nod, as if to say, "Yes, that's right. It is as wonderful as you think." He then turned his broad head and looked up at the shimmering droplets on the leaves, and his rumbling hum deepened in pitch, a note of shared appreciation. He took a few more slow steps, ambling over to another part of the tree, and with a long pink tongue of his own, he delicately licked a single drop of the starlight nectar. He closed his eyes for a moment, a look of pure, simple bliss on his whiskered face. In that shared, silent moment of gentle pleasure, a friendship was formed. Chapter 3. The Pool That Holds the Sky. Pip felt a quiet sense of ease settle over him in the old badger's presence. Bramblewick was a creature of slow, gentle movements and warm, rumbling sounds, a being who seemed as much a part of the glade as the moss and the ancient trees. After the old badger had savored his own taste of the starlight nectar, he turned his kind, intelligent eyes back to Pip. He let out another soft, rumbling hum, and then, with a slow dip of his head, he began to amble toward the center of the clearing. It was a clear, gentle invitation to follow. Curiosity piqued once more, Pip trotted silently behind him, his small hooves sinking into the plush, deep moss. Bramblewick led him to the very heart of the glade, to a feature Pip had noticed but not yet dared to approach. It was a small, perfectly circular pool of water, its surface as dark and still as polished obsidian. It was so perfectly placid that it held the reflection of the leaves and the faint starlight above without a single ripple, a perfect dark mirror to the world. Bramblewick settled himself comfortably on the mossy bank, his short legs tucked beneath his round body. He patted the moss beside him with a heavy paw, a soft thudding sound that was an invitation for Pip to sit. Pip obliged, folding his own lanky legs to rest beside the warm, solid badger. The air near the pool was even warmer, and the low hum that filled the glade was noticeably stronger here, seeming to emanate from the water itself. Bramblewick looked into the pool, and then at Pip, and rumbled a sound that was for the first time almost a word. It was a low, warm murmur. Holds the light. He then gestured with his nose toward the great canopy above. Pip followed his gaze. He saw how the silvery starlight seemed to filter down, dripping not just as nectar on the leaves, but as pure, silent light into the pool. The dark water did not just reflect it, it seemed to drink it in. As Pip watched, mesmerized, the surface of the pool began to emit a soft, ambient glow of its own. It was a gentle, silvery luminescence that pulsed with a slow, steady rhythm, in time with the deep hum that vibrated through the ground. This pool was the clearing's heart, gathering the magic of the sky and breathing it back out into the glade, nourishing the moss, the trees, and the very air. It was a place of profound and gentle power, a power that only sought to create peace. Pip lay his head down on the soft moss, his chin resting on his folded forelegs. He listened. The sound of the whispering leaves was clearer here, too. It was a soft, continuous rustle, a shushing sound like 1,000 gentle voices all murmuring at once. Bramblewick had told him the leaves told stories, and as Pip listened, he began to feel the truth of it. The sounds were not words he could understand, but they conveyed feelings of long, slow seasons of peace, of the quiet growth of roots deep in the earth, of silent, watchful nights under a benevolent sky. The story settled his mind, smoothing out his thoughts until they were as placid as the surface of the pool. He felt the warmth from the nectar he had tasted, still glowing gently in his belly. He felt the soft, deep moss cushioning him like a perfect nest. He felt the solid, reassuring presence of the sleepy badger beside him. He heard the deep, calming hum of the pool and the gentle storytelling rustle of the leaves. Every one of his senses was filled with a simple, profound, and peaceful sensation. A feeling of utter contentment washed over him, so pure and complete that he let out a soft sigh, his breath misting for a moment in the cool, glowing air. Bramblewick heard the sigh and made a soft, rumbling chuckle deep in his chest. He reached out a heavy paw and gave Pip's flank a single, slow, gentle pat, a gesture of complete understanding and companionship. Here, in the heart of the ancient glade, beside the pool that held the sky, the young fawn and the old badger sat together in perfect, shared silence, listening to the quiet magic of the world. Chapter 4. A Bed of Moss and Stars. As the night deepened, the magic of the clearing only grew more vibrant, and yet somehow more peaceful. The silvery light that filled the air seemed to soften and intensify at the same time, becoming a rich, liquid glow that bathed everything in a gentle luminescence. The stars that were visible through the small gaps in the canopy seemed to shine with a special brilliance, as if they knew they were being watched by their reflection in the pool below. The hum from the water grew a little deeper, its rhythm a slow, steady, reassuring heartbeat for the whole glade. The starlight nectar now dripped more freely from the broad leaves of the ancient trees. Pip could hear the soft occasional plink as a heavy drop fell onto the mossy ground, where it would shine for a moment like a fallen star, before being absorbed. He and Bramblewick had tasted a few more drops, each one a renewed wave of warmth and deep, quiet joy that settled in their bones. The sweetness was a taste of pure peace, and it made Pip's eyelids feel wonderfully heavy. Bramblewick seemed to sense the fawn's gentle sleepiness. The old badger let out a great rumbling yawn that showed his pink tongue, and then he gave Pip a soft nudge with his whiskered snout. He gestured with his head toward a particularly thick and inviting patch of moss near the glowing pool. It was a natural hollow, a perfect, fawn-sized nest that looked as if it had been waiting for him. The moss there was so deep it looked like a soft green cloud resting on the earth. Pip understood. He gave the old badger a grateful blink of his large dark eyes and ambled over to the mossy bed. As he settled himself, folding his long legs beneath his body, the moss rose up around him, a soft, perfect embrace. It was the most comfortable place he had ever rested. He could feel the gentle warmth of the earth through the moss and the slow, soothing vibration from the humming pool. He laid his head down, tucking his nose toward his flank, and let out a long, contented sigh. From his nest, he had a perfect view of the glade. He watched the light of the pool pulse in its slow, steady rhythm. He watched the shimmering drops of nectar form and fall in the gentle, silvery air. He listened to the constant, soft whisper of the storytelling leaves above. The world was reduced to these simple, beautiful, and profoundly calming sensations. There were no dangers here, no worries, nothing but the deep, abiding peace of the starlight. Bramblewick had settled himself into his own familiar hollow at the base of a great tree, his breathing already deepening into a soft rumbling snore that added another layer to the glade's gentle symphony. Pip felt a wave of affection for the kind, sleepy creature. He had not felt alone for a moment since entering this magical place. He felt utterly safe, completely cared for, as if the glade itself were holding him in a warm, gentle hand. His thoughts, which were few and simple to begin with, began to dissolve into feelings. The thought of his mother became the feeling of warmth. The thought of the woods became the feeling of safety. The memory of the nectar's taste became a feeling of pure golden contentment that spread through his entire body. His breathing slowed, deepening until it was in perfect time with the pulsing of the pool. He was drifting, floating on a soft tide of peace, carried toward a deep and restorative sleep. His last waking sensation was the sweet, lingering taste of starlight on his tongue, a taste he knew he would find in his dreams. In the heart of the hidden glade, surrounded by a bed of moss and a universe of gentle stars, the young fawn slept. Chapter 5. Carrying the Dawn. Pip awoke to a world transformed by a different kind of light. A soft, golden luminescence was filtering through the high canopy, weaving itself into the silvery starlight that still lingered in the cool air of the glade. Dawn had arrived, and its gentle rays were painting the leaves with touches of warm honey and pale rose. The humming of the pool had softened to a barely there whisper, and the nectar on the leaves no longer dripped, but rested as a last fading shimmer. The glade was preparing for its own quiet day of rest. He stretched his long legs, a feeling of deep well-being flowing through him. The sleep he had experienced was unlike any other, a profound rest that had settled not just in his body, but in his very spirit. He felt light, clear, and filled with a quiet, joyful energy. The deep moss of his bed still held the warmth of his sleep, and he lingered for a moment, savoring the feeling of utter peace. He took a deep breath of the cool morning air, which now carried the fresh, clean scent of dew alongside the lingering sweetness of the night. Bramblewick was already awake, sitting at the edge of the glowing pool. The old badger was not watching the sky, but was using a large fern frond as a soft broom, gently sweeping a few fallen leaves away from the water's edge with slow, deliberate movements. He looked up as Pip approached, and a soft, welcoming rumble started in his chest. His small, kind eyes held a look of warm approval, as if congratulating Pip on a night well rested. Pip walked to the edge of the pool and looked in. The water was no longer glowing with its own inner light, but was now a perfect mirror to the new morning sky, reflecting the soft golds and pinks of the sunrise. He dipped his muzzle to the surface and took a long, cool drink. The water was fresh and clean, and he imagined he could still taste a faint, lingering hint of the starlight it had held all night. He knew, with a gentle certainty that came from his own quiet heart, that it was time to return to his own woods and his mother. There was no sadness in the thought, only a feeling that his visit to this magical place was complete. The glade had offered him its gift, and he had accepted it with an open and grateful heart. Now, it was time to carry that gift back out into the world. He turned to Bramblewick and gave the old badger a soft nudge with his nose, a gesture of deep thanks and farewell. Bramblewick returned the gesture, his bristly, whiskered snout a warm and rough texture against Pip's soft cheek. The old badger then rumbled his deepest, warmest hum and ambled with Pip to the edge of the clearing, to the soft curtain of ferns that served as a doorway between worlds. Pip paused at the threshold, turning for one last look at the Starlight Clearing. It was beautiful in the dawn, a peaceful green sanctuary bathed in the soft, hopeful light of a new day. He would carry this image with him always. He gave Bramblewick one final thankful glance, and the old badger gave a slow, solemn wink, a silent promise that the glade would always be here, waiting. With a heart full of peace, Pip pushed through the soft fern leaves and stepped back into the familiar woods. The air here was cooler, and the sounds of the waking forest were a gentle welcome. He could hear the cheerful chirping of the morning birds and the rustle of other creatures beginning their day. He felt the sweet, starlit memory on his tongue, and a profound, quiet joy settled deep within him, a seed of peace that he knew would never leave. He began the walk home, his small hooves light on the path, carrying the dawn not just in the sky above him, but inside his own happy heart.